Millionaire helps twins in a snowstorm. They had a gift that changed their lives. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The howling wind battered against the windows of the Bentley as William Blackwood squinted through the windshield, his knuckles white, against the steering wheel. Boston hadn't seen a blizzard this severe in 15 years. The normally confident financial titan felt his control slipping with each gust that pushed against his luxury vehicle. Almost home, he muttered to himself, a habit born from years of solitude. William's mansion appeared ahead, a dark silhouette against the swirling snow. He had purchased the isolated property specifically for its privacy, preferring the company of financial reports to people. The car's headlights swept across the ornate iron gates as he approached, then suddenly illuminated something that didn't belong. Two small figures huddled against the gatepost. William slammed on his brakes, the Bentley sliding slightly before stopping. He squinted through the frost-covered windshield. Children? Impossible. Not in this weather. Not at his remote estate. Yet as he cautiously stepped out into the biting cold, the wind nearly knocking him off his feet, the shapes became clearer. Two little girls, no more than 6 years old, identical in every way. Their thin bodies covered by nothing more than a tattered blanket. Good heavens! William gasped, immediately removing his cashmere coat to wrap around them. What on earth are you doing out here? The girls looked up with identical frightened eyes, their lips blue with cold. Neither spoke. Never mind that now, he said, lifting both children at once. Let's get you inside. He carried them through the blizzard, up the steps to his mansion and kicked the door with his foot until Mrs. Parker, his longtime housekeeper, answered. Mr. Blackwood, whatever is... Her eyes widened at the sight of the two shivering children in his arms. Oh my word. They were at the gate, William explained, bringing them into the warmth of the foyer. Nearly frozen. Mrs. Parker sprang into action with remarkable efficiency. The library fireplace is already lit. Take them there while I prepare hot chocolate and find some blankets. The twins remained silent as William placed them gently on the leather sofa nearest to the roaring fire. Their matching faces, though pinched with cold, showed an undeniable beauty that stirred something within him, a protective instinct he hadn't known he possessed. You're safe now, he said softly, unsure if they could even hear him through their shivers. I promise. As Mrs. Parker returned with blankets and steaming mugs, William stepped back, watching as she tenderly cared for the children. Something profound had just happened, though he couldn't yet name it. The snow continued to fall outside, but inside his once empty mansion, something new had begun. In that moment, William Blackwood couldn't possibly know that these two abandoned little girls would transform his solitary existence forever. The morning light filtered through the library's heavy curtains, casting a golden glow on the two small figures nestled under thick blankets on the sofa. William Blackwood stood in the doorway, coffee cup in hand, still processing the strange turn his life had taken overnight. Mrs. Parker approached silently, her practical shoes making no sound on the plush carpet. They slept through the night, she whispered. Poor dears were exhausted. William nodded, unable to articulate the strange mix of concern and curiosity that had kept him awake. Any idea who they might be? None, sir. No identification was found. In their pockets. Just this. Mrs. Parker handed him a crumpled piece of paper. William unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was hasty, almost desperate. Their names are Emma and Olivia Mason. You have everything. Now they're your problem. A movement from the sofa caught his attention. One of the twins, impossible to tell which, had opened her eyes and was watching him warily. Good morning, William said, attempting a gentle tone that felt foreign on his tongue. Are you Emma or Olivia? I'm Emma, the child replied, her voice unexpectedly steady. She nudged her sister awake. Liv, wake up. We're still here. The second twin, Olivia, stirred slowly, blinking in confusion before her expression settled into something more guarded than her sister's. Mrs. Parker stepped forward with a warm smile. "You must be hungry, dears. How about some breakfast?" While Mrs. Parker led them to the kitchen, William retreated to his study, dialing his security team. Within minutes, they confirmed what he already suspected. The security footage showed a man bringing the girls to the gate, speaking briefly to them, then driving away in a battered sedan. At breakfast, William observed the twins from the head of his massive dining table. Though identical in appearance, their personalities immediately diverged. Emma spoke confidently between bites of pancake, while Olivia watched everything with silent intensity. "Our mom died," Emma announced suddenly, answering the question William hadn't yet asked. 3 months ago. Then Derek said he couldn't keep us anymore." "Derek?" William prompted gently. "Our stepdad," Emma clarified. "He said you're super rich and could give us what he can't." William nearly choked on his coffee. "He knows me?" "He works for you." "In the mailroom at one of your buildings downtown," Emma replied matter-of-factly. "He showed us your picture in the newspaper once." The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. This Derek had abandoned his stepdaughters at the home of his wealthy employer, a man he'd never actually met. "I should call social services," William murmured, more to himself than to the girls. For the first time, Olivia spoke, her voice barely audible. "Are you sending us away again?" The question, so simple yet devastating, hung in the air between them. William found himself unable to answer as something unexpected stirred within his carefully ordered world. William sat in his parked Bentley outside Hope Haven Community Shelter, his hands still gripping the steering wheel though the engine was off. The twins had been uncharacteristically silent during the drive, their small faces pressed against the windows as Boston's upscale neighborhoods gave way to more modest surroundings. "This is only temporary," he had explained, the words sounding hollow even to his own ears. "Until we locate your stepfather or find another solution." The intake process had been efficient but cold. A tired-looking social worker named Ms. Collins took their information, raising an eyebrow when William explained how the girls had appeared at his gate. "Abandoned children are unfortunately common, Mr. Blackwood, but leaving them at a stranger's home is unusual," she remarked while typing their details into an ancient computer. Emma had maintained her brave facade, answering questions clearly while keeping a protective arm around Olivia, who hadn't spoken a word since they'd left the mansion. When the moment came to say goodbye, William found himself unexpectedly paralyzed. He knelt awkwardly to their level, his expensive suit touching the worn linoleum floor. "You'll be safe here until everything gets sorted out," he promised. Emma nodded stoically. "We understand. Thank you for not leaving us in the snow." It was Olivia who cracked his composure, her silent tears, and the small hand that momentarily grasped his sleeve before letting go. Now sitting in his car 3 hours later, William couldn't shake the image from his mind. His phone buzzed with a message from his assistant. "Urgent meeting with Tokyo investors at 4 p.m. Yet instead of starting the engine, he found himself dialing another number. "Thomas," he said when his private investigator answered, "I need everything you can find on a Derek Spencer. Works in the mailroom at Blackwood Investments. Focus on his connection to twin girls named Emma and Olivia Mason." The response came faster than expected. By mid-afternoon, William was staring at a preliminary report. Derek Spencer had cleaned out his apartment 2 days ago, quit his job without notice, and purchased a one-way bus ticket to Chicago. There were no other family members listed for the twins. Their mother, Amanda Mason, had died of cancer 3 months earlier. The girls were truly alone. William found himself driving back to Hope Haven, arriving just as the winter sun began to set. Ms. Collins seemed unsurprised to see him again. "I'd like to discuss temporary guardianship options," he heard himself saying. The words forming before his mind had fully committed to the idea. "You're aware that's a significant responsibility, Mr. Blackwood, especially for someone with no childcare experience." William straightened his shoulders, the same posture he adopted before closing million-dollar deals. "I have a large home, considerable resources, and can provide immediate stability. Surely that counts for something. As he signed the preliminary paperwork, William wondered what had possessed him. He who scheduled his life in 15-minute increments was now taking responsibility for two traumatized 6-year-olds, yet when he walked back into the common room where Emma and Olivia waited, something in their expressions, hope carefully, tempered with distrust, told him this impulsive decision might be the most important one he'd ever made. The east wing of the Blackwood mansion hadn't been used in years. Now the sound of children's footsteps echoed through its previously silent halls, a stark contrast to the methodical rhythm of William's solitary life. "These will be your rooms," William said, opening doors to 2 adjacent guest suites. "We can redecorate them however you like." Emma immediately bounced onto the nearest 4-poster bed, testing its springs, while Olivia lingered in the doorway, clutching a small backpack containing their few possessions from Hope Haven. "Both rooms are just for us?" Olivia asked softly, her voice still unfamiliar to William's ears. "Of course," he replied, then hesitated. "Unless you'd prefer to share one?" The twins exchanged a glance that spoke volumes, their private communication system already evident to William. "We always share," Emma explained, suddenly serious, "since we were babies." "That can certainly be arranged," William nodded, making a mental note to have the second room converted into a play area instead. Mrs. Parker appeared with fresh towels and a remarkable understanding of children's needs that William lacked entirely. "I've laid out some new pajamas on the bed," she told the girls. "Tomorrow we'll get you proper clothes, but these should do for tonight." Later, after the twins had bathed and changed, William found himself facing the unfamiliar challenge of bedtime. He stood awkwardly in their doorway, watching as Mrs. Parker tucked them in. "Good night, Mr. Blackwood," Emma called out politely. "Good night, Emma." "Good night, Olivia," he replied, switching off the main light but leaving a small lamp aglow as Mrs. Parker had suggested. 3 hours later, William was reviewing quarterly projections in his study when a small sound drew his attention. Olivia stood in the doorway, tears streaming silently down her face. "What's wrong?" he asked, alarmed. "I had a bad dream about Mommy," she whispered. William froze, completely unprepared for this situation. Boardroom crises he could handle with ease. A crying child was terrifying territory. "Would you like to sit down?" he offered, gesturing to the leather armchair across from his desk. To his surprise, Olivia approached, but didn't take the chair. Instead, she stood beside him, her small fingers tracing the edge of his mahogany desk. "My mom used to say that missing someone is like having a bruise on your heart," she said quietly. "It hurts most when you touch it, but it means you haven't forgotten them." William felt something crack in his carefully constructed composure. "My parents died when I was young too," he found himself saying. "Not as young as you, but young enough that it changed everything." Olivia looked up, their shared grief creating an unexpected bridge between them. "Does your heart still have bruises?" she asked. William nodded, the honesty surprising himself. Some bruises never fully heal, but they do get less painful with time. When he finally walked Olivia back to her room, Emma was sitting up in bed, anxiously waiting. "She's okay," William reassured her. "Just a bad dream." As he closed their door, William realized something profound had shifted. For the first time in decades, someone had glimpsed the vulnerability behind his polished facade, and it had been a 6-year-old girl who barely reached his elbow. William awoke with a start, his dream fading but leaving him with a familiar ache. In it, he'd been a child again, standing in the rain at his parents' funeral, his uncle's firm hand on his shoulder while his cousin Jeffrey glared from beneath a black umbrella. He checked his watch. 4:30 a.m. The house was silent except for the distant ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. Unable to return to sleep, he made his way to his private study, pausing briefly outside the twins' room. The door was slightly ajar, and he could see their identical forms, peaceful in slumber. 3 weeks had passed since the snowy night that changed everything. 3 weeks of learning that running a financial empire was somehow less challenging than understanding the needs of 2 6-year-old girls. In his study, William unlocked a rarely opened drawer and withdrew a faded photograph, himself as a boy, flanked by his smiling parents. They had died in a sailing accident when he was 12, leaving him to the care of his father's brother, a stern businessman who saw emotion as weakness and affection as unnecessary. "You were thinking about them again?" Mrs. Parker's voice came, softly from the doorway. In 30 years of service, she had become the closest thing to family William had. "Dreams," he admitted, placing the photograph back in the drawer and thinking about the girls. Their mother dying so young. Mrs. Parker nodded, setting down a cup of tea beside him. "I've been going through some of the information your investigator found about Amanda Mason. She was quite remarkable. First chair, violinist with the Boston Symphony Orchestra before her illness." William had read the file. Amanda Mason had been a musical prodigy who gave up a promising international career to raise her daughters after a brief marriage that ended in divorce. Years later, she had married Derek Spencer, a decision that ultimately left her children abandoned at a stranger's gate. "The resemblance is striking," Mrs. Parker continued, placing a newspaper clipping on his desk. It showed a beautiful woman with the twins, then about 4, after a concert. "The girls have her eyes." William studied the image. "Have you noticed Olivia humming to herself when she thinks no one is listening? I wonder if she inherited her mother's musical ability." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of small feet in the hallway. Emma appeared, hair tousled from sleep, clutching a tattered teddy bear William hadn't seen before. "Is it morning yet?" she asked, rubbing her eyes. "Not quite," William replied, checking his impulse to send her back to bed as his uncle would have done. "Why are you awake so early?" Emma approached, her bear dangling from one hand. "Mr. Buttons was worried about you. He said you might be lonely in your big study all by yourself." The simple statement caught William off guard. When was the last time anyone had worried about his loneliness? "That's very thoughtful of Mr. Buttons," he managed to say. "Would you and Mr. Buttons like some hot chocolate while we wait for morning?" As Mrs. Parker prepared the drink, William realized something profound. Perhaps he and these orphaned children were healing each other in ways none of them fully understood. The warm spring sunshine streamed through the newly installed window seat in the twins' bedroom. 3 months had transformed not only the east wing of the Blackwood mansion, but William's entire routine. His once perfectly scheduled life now accommodated school drop-offs, ballet lessons, and the occasional impromptu tea party with stuffed animals. "Mr. Blackwood, your 10 a.m. conference call has been rescheduled." His assistant's voice came through the intercom on his desk. "Thank you, Rebecca. Has the school nurse called back about Olivia's allergy test?" "Yes, sir. All clear. And the ballet recital tickets have been confirmed for next Friday." William smiled to himself, remembering how Rebecca had initially been bewildered by his sudden interest in children's activities. Now she managed his parental responsibilities with the same efficiency she applied to his business empire. That afternoon, William left work early, another once unthinkable adjustment, to attend a parent-teacher conference at the prestigious Whitmore Academy, where he'd enrolled the twins. Ms. Winters, their teacher, greeted him warmly. "The girls are adapting remarkably well, Mr. Blackwood. Emma is quite the natural leader, while Olivia shines in our music program. She has an extraordinary ear." Pride swelled in William's chest, surprising him with its intensity. Their mother was a violinist with the symphony, he found himself explaining. "That explains it," Ms. Winters nodded. "Has Olivia had any formal training yet?" William made a mental note to arrange music lessons, another item on his ever-growing list of parental duties he was still learning to navigate. Later that weekend, William surprised the twins with a sailing trip on his rarely used yacht. It was the first time he'd been on the water since his parents' accident, a fact he kept to himself as they boarded the vessel. "This is like a floating mansion," Emma exclaimed, immediately exploring every corner of the deck. Olivia stayed closer, to William, watching the crew prepare for departure with cautious fascination. "Have you been sailing before?" she asked him quietly. "Not for many years," he admitted. "Why not?" "Sometimes the things we love can also remind us of sad memories," he explained, surprised by his own candor. Olivia considered this. "Like my violin. Mom used to play with me, but after she got sick, I stopped. The simple parallel struck William deeply. Perhaps we both should try again, don't you think? The day was perfect. Clear skies, gentle breeze, the twins' excitement infectious. William found himself relaxing, explaining sailing terms, even laughing when Emma attempted to give orders to his amused crew. Then came the moment that changed everything. A sudden gust caused the boat to lurch, and Emma, leaning too far over the railing, lost her balance. William moved with instinctive speed, catching her arm before she could fall. For one heart-stopping second, as he pulled her back to safety, the terror of potentially losing her overwhelmed him completely. "I've got you," he whispered, holding her trembling form against him. "You're safe." That night, as he tucked the girls into bed, Emma asked sleepily, "Are you going to be our new dad?" The question hung in the air, impossibly complex yet simple in its essence. "Would you want that?" William responded carefully. The June sunshine bathed the Blackwood estate in warm light as William reviewed quarterly reports in his home office. 5 months had passed since the snowy night that brought the twins into his life, and the temporary guardianship arrangement had settled into something that felt increasingly permanent. A knock on his office door interrupted his concentration. Mrs. Parker stood there, her usually composed expression unsettled. "Mr. Jeffrey is here to see you, sir." He arrived without calling ahead. William tensed. His cousin Jeffrey, co-owner of Blackwood Investments, rarely visited the mansion, preferring the sterile atmosphere of their downtown offices. "Show him in, please." Jeffrey Blackwood entered with his characteristic swagger. Expensive Italian, shoes clicking against the hardwood floor. Though cousins, they couldn't have been more different. Jeffrey's slick charisma contrasting sharply with William's reserved demeanor. "So the rumors are true," Jeffrey said instead of a greeting, glancing around at the subtle changes in the office. A child's drawing framed on the wall, a small ballet slipper forgotten on a side table. William Blackwood playing daddy to a pair of strays. "They have names, Jeffrey," William replied coolly. "Emma and Olivia, and they're my legal wards." Jeffrey settled uninvited into the leather chair across from William's desk. "This is quite the midlife crisis, cousin. Most men just buy sports cars." Before William could respond, the door burst open and Emma ran in, face flushed with excitement, a paper clutched in her hand. "Look, I got an A on my—" She stopped abruptly, noticing Jeffrey. "Emma, this is my cousin Jeffrey," William said, his tone softening. "Jeffrey, this is Emma Mason." Jeffrey's smile didn't reach his eyes as he extended his hand to the child. My. Aren't you the spitting image of trouble?" Emma shook his hand politely but inched closer to William. "Mrs. Parker said lunch is ready. Should I tell her you have a guest?" After Emma left, Jeffrey's expression hardened. "The board is concerned, William. You've missed 3 meetings in the past month. Rumor has it you're leaving early, arriving late, all because of these domestic arrangements." "My work hasn't suffered," William countered. "Not yet." Jeffrey leaned forward. "But children are a distraction you can't afford. The Osaka merger requires your full attention. Are you really going to risk everything we've built for 2 random kids?" After Jeffrey left, William remained at his desk, troubled. Later that evening, as he helped the twins with homework, Olivia noticed his distraction. "Did that man make you sad?" she asked perceptively. William considered deflecting but opted for a version of the truth. "He reminded me of some difficult business matters." "Is it because of us?" Olivia pressed, her insight remarkable for a 6-year-old. "No," William assured her, realizing as he said it that it was entirely true. "It's about grown-up things that have nothing to do with you." That night, reviewing some financial documents Jeffrey had questioned, William discovered troubling discrepancies in accounts his cousin managed. The numbers simply didn't add up, suggesting either incompetence or deliberate manipulation. As he pondered this discovery, a soft knock came at his door. The twins stood there in matching pajamas, Olivia holding a leather-bound album. "We found this in the library," Emma explained. "It has pictures of you when you were little." As they settled beside him on the sofa, opening the forgotten family album, William realized that Jeffrey's visit had accomplished something unintended. It had made clear which parts of his life truly mattered now. Maybe, Emma murmured, already, drifting toward sleep. You're pretty good at catching. The summer morning dawned bright and clear as William moved quietly through the mansion, making final preparations. Today was special, the twins' 7th birthday, their first since coming to live with him. He wanted everything to be perfect. Theory. Decorations are all set in the garden, sir, Mrs. Parker reported, and the cake has been delivered exactly as you specified. William nodded, surveying the small pile of carefully wrapped presents on his desk. He'd agonized over the gifts, wanting them to be meaningful rather than merely expensive. For Emma, a leather-bound journal with her initials embossed in gold. For Olivia, a beginner's violin he'd had specially crafted by a master luthier in Vienna. But there was one more gift box, smaller than the others, containing twin silver lockets. By afternoon, the celebration was in full swing. William had kept it intimate, just a few friends from the girls' school, their favorite teacher Ms. Winters, and Charlotte, a kind neighbor who had helped with childcare when William had unavoidable business commitments. You've created something wonderful here, Charlotte commented, watching the twins laughing as they played a garden game. It's amazing how much they've blossomed in just a few months. William felt a surge of pride that still surprised him with its intensity. They're remarkable children, I'm just trying to give them stability. You're giving them far more than that, Charlotte replied. You're giving them a home. When the time came for presents, William watched nervously as the twins opened their gifts from friends. Books, art supplies, a science kit for Haley that immediately captured her attention. Finally, it was time for his own offerings. Emma gasped when she opened the journal, running her fingers reverently over the embossed leather. It's just like the one in my favorite story. Olivia unwrapped her violin with trembling hands, her eyes wide with wonder. It's beautiful, she whispered, carefully touching the polished wood. It was your mother's instrument, William explained softly. Not this exact one, of course, but the same kind. Mrs. Parker helped me research it. For a moment, Olivia looked as though she might cry. Then, surprising everyone, she threw her arms around William's neck. Thank you, she whispered against his shoulder. Later, as the party wound down and the last guest departed, William presented the twins with the final gift. Inside the small box, 2 silver lockets gleamed in the late afternoon light. These are special, he explained, kneeling to their level. Open them. Inside each locket was a tiny photograph of Amanda Mason, smiling radiantly. On the opposite side, an engraving, in Emma's. As brave as your mother, in Olivia's, with your mother's heart. The twins stared at the lockets in silence, then at each other, their identical eyes filling with tears. You remembered her, Emma finally said, her voice barely audible. Of course, William replied. She'll always be part of who you are. It was then that Emma did something unprecedented. She called him Uncle Will for the first time, the childish nickname falling naturally from her lips as she hugged him tight. That night, as William passed the twins' room, he overheard them, whispering, Do you think we could stay forever? Olivia asked softly. I hope so, Emma replied. I think he needs us too. William stood motionless in the hallway, realizing with sudden clarity that she was absolutely right. A gentle autumn breeze rustled the crimson leaves on the maple trees lining the driveway of the Blackwood estate. William sat at his desk in the home office he'd converted from a rarely used sitting room, its location offering a clear view of the garden where the twins played after school. 1 year. It had been 1 full year since that snowy night when 2 small figures appeared at his gate. The temporary guardianship papers had been replaced by more permanent legal arrangements, and the Blackwood mansion had transformed from a sterile showcase into a genuine home. William smiled as he watched Emma race around the garden, clipboard in hand, organizing a make-believe corporate meeting with her stuffed animals. Her natural leadership abilities amused him. She'd even begun sitting in on some of his weekend business calls, listening intently before peppering him with surprisingly insightful questions. Olivia sat beneath the old oak tree, drawing in her sketchbook while occasionally plucking at the strings of her violin beside her. Her music lessons had quickly revealed Amanda's talent flowing through her daughter's veins. William had hired Boston's finest instructor, who declared Olivia a prodigy after just 3 sessions. His phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Morgan. Financial proposal needs review by 5 p.m. William sighed and turned back to his laptop. These days he worked primarily from home, maintaining regular office hours while being present for the twins. The arrangement had raised eyebrows initially, but productivity had actually increased, a fact that silenced most critics, most but not all. Jeffrey continued to voice disapproval at every board meeting, questioning William's commitment and suggesting the company needed undivided leadership. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Mrs. Parker entered with a concerned expression. "The school called, sir. There's a parent-teacher conference they'd like you to attend tomorrow at 3. Is everything all right?" William asked, immediately concerned. Apparently there was an incident in the music room. Olivia became upset when another child mishandled some instruments. William nodded, already rearranging his mental schedule. "I'll be there." The following afternoon, William sat in a child-sized chair across from Ms. Winters, feeling oddly nervous. He'd negotiated billion-dollar deals with less anxiety. "Please understand, Mr. Blackwood, Olivia isn't in trouble," Ms. Winters began, "but I wanted to discuss something important. When the other student damaged the violin, Olivia became extremely distressed, more than the situation warranted. She's very particular about musical instruments," William explained. "Yes, but it was her explanation that caught my attention. She told the boy that he couldn't understand what it meant to lose something precious. When I spoke with her privately, she mentioned her mother's violin." William's chest tightened. "Her mother was a professional violinist before she passed away." Ms. Winters nodded sympathetically. "That's what I suspected. The other teacher referred to you as Olivia's father, and she became quite adamant that you weren't her real father, just her," she consulted her notes, "her person who keeps us safe." The phrase simultaneously warmed and wounded William's heart. "The girls have been through significant trauma," he said carefully. "We're still finding our way." On the drive home, William pondered Ms. Winters' observations. The twins had seamlessly integrated into his life, but there remained a careful distance, an unspoken acknowledgement that their arrangement, however comfortable, wasn't quite family. The crisp November air carried the scent of wood smoke as William's Bentley pulled into the circular driveway. After 15 months of sharing their lives, he had made a decision that both excited and terrified him. Today, he would show the twins the blueprints for the mansion's renovation, a project he'd been secretly planning for weeks. Over dinner, Mrs. Parker's famous pot roast, a favorite of both girls. William cleared his throat nervously. "I have something important to discuss with you both," he began, setting down his fork. Emma immediately straightened, her expression serious. "Is it about the call from Mr. Jeffrey this morning? I heard Mrs. Parker say he sounded angry." William smiled despite himself. Nothing escaped Emma's notice. "No, it's not about Jeffrey, it's about our home, this house." Olivia's eyes widened with alarm. "Are we moving?" "Not exactly," William replied, reaching for the rolled blueprints beside his chair. "But I'm considering some changes." He spread the architectural drawings across the cleared dinner table. The twins leaned forward, identical expressions of curiosity on their faces. "These are the plans for renovating the West Wing," William explained, pointing to the detailed floor plan. "It's been empty since before I purchased the estate." Emma studied the drawings with intensity. "Those look like bedrooms." "They are," William confirmed. 3 new bedrooms, each with its own bathroom and sitting area, one for each of us. A moment of silence followed as the twins processed his words. "But we share a room," Olivia said quietly. William nodded. "You always have, I know. But I thought perhaps as you're growing up, you might each like your own space. Designed exactly how you want it." To William's surprise, Emma looked directly at him and asked, "Why are you doing this? Is it because we're staying longer?" The simplicity of her question belied its profound implications. William chose his next words carefully. "I hope you'll stay as long as you want to," he said. This is your home now. And I thought you deserved rooms that truly belong to you, not guest rooms you happen to occupy. Olivia tilted her head, studying him with that perceptive gaze that always made William feel transparent. Forever? Even when we're grown-ups? Especially then, William replied, his voice steadier than he expected. The twins exchanged one of their silent communications, a language of subtle glances William had learned to recognize but never fully decipher. Finally, Emma pointed to the largest bedroom on the blueprint. If this one's yours and that one would be mine, then Olivia should have the corner room because the light is better for her paintings. Relief flooded through William. He hadn't realized how much their approval meant until that moment. There's one more thing, he added, turning to the final page of blueprints. This room between your two bedrooms, I thought it could be a music room, with space for Olivia's violin practice and a piano perhaps. Olivia's eyes lit up, but she hesitated. Could it have pictures of Mom, so she can listen when I play? Of course, William replied, his throat tightening unexpectedly. Your mother will always have a place in this home. As they continued discussing colors and furnishings, William realized this renovation wasn't just about rooms. It was about building a future together, one they were all finally ready to imagine. The renovation of the West Wing progressed rapidly through the winter months. William had hired Boston's finest contractors, and the sound of construction became a familiar backdrop to their daily lives. The twins visited the site every afternoon after school, watching with excitement as their personalized spaces took shape. Olivia's corner room now featured a bay window overlooking the garden, with custom shelves for her growing collection of sheet music. Emma's room included a miniature desk modeled after William's own, where she could work on important business. The music room between them housed a gleaming baby grand piano and a special display case for Olivia's violin when not in use. One snowy February afternoon, William sat in a meeting with his lawyers finalizing the paperwork that would make his guardianship of the twins permanent. The first step toward eventual adoption. All looks in order, Mr. Blackwood, his attorney said, sliding the documents across the desk. Once these are filed, the court date should be scheduled within 6 weeks. As William reached for his pen, his office door burst open. Jeffrey strode in unannounced, his face flushed with either cold or anger, possibly both. William, we need to talk, now. He glanced dismissively at the attorney. Alone. After the lawyer departed, Jeffrey tossed a manila folder onto William's desk. Explain this. Inside were surveillance photos of William with the twins at their school's winter concert, at a restaurant, shopping for furniture. The images were clearly taken from a distance without their knowledge. You're having me followed? William asked, anger rising in his throat. The board is concerned about your priorities, Jeffrey replied coldly. You've missed 3 major investor meetings in the past month. I sent Roberts in my place. He's more than capable. It's not about capability, Jeffrey interrupted. It's about commitment. These children have become a liability to the company. William stiffened. The girls are not up for discussion, Jeffrey. They certainly are when you're planning to make them Blackwoods. Jeffrey tapped the legal documents on the desk. I have sources everywhere, cousin. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? William stood slowly. I don't need your approval to build my family. Family? Jeffrey laughed harshly. These aren't your children, William. They're charity cases you picked up like stray puppies, and now I hear their biological father has resurfaced. The room seemed to tilt beneath William's feet. What are you talking about? Jeffrey's smile was cold. Derek Spencer is back in Boston. Apparently he's had a change of heart about abandoning his stepdaughters. My sources tell me he's preparing to petition for custody. After Jeffrey left, William sat motionless, his mind racing. Could Derek really return after all this time? The twins had finally found stability. They were thriving, in school, making friends, healing from their mother's loss. The thought of disrupting their lives again was unbearable. That evening, as the twins excitedly showed him the paint samples they'd chosen for their new rooms, William struggled to maintain his composure. When they finally went to bed, he called a Thomas, his investigator. "I need everything on Derek Spencer's recent activities," he said quietly. "And I mean everything." The response came at dawn. Derek had indeed returned to Boston 3 weeks ago. He had rented an apartment, found steady employment, and begun attending parenting classes at a community center. All the actions of a man preparing to reclaim his parental rights, or the carefully orchestrated moves of someone being coached on how to appear reformed. The downtown Boston courthouse loomed gray and imposing against the spring sky. William straightened his tie as he entered, flanked by his legal team, the finest custody attorneys in Massachusetts. Today marked the first hearing in what promised to be a lengthy battle for the twins. "Remember," his lead attorney whispered, "stay calm no matter what. Judge Harrington values composure above all else." William nodded, his expression neutral despite the storm of emotions beneath. He hadn't told the twins about Derek's petition for custody, not wanting to disrupt their lives until absolutely necessary. Mrs. Parker had taken them to school this morning with a fabricated explanation for his absence. Inside the courtroom, William immediately spotted Derek Spencer sitting across the aisle, thinner than in the photographs, wearing a suit that appeared new but ill-fitting. Beside him sat a lawyer William didn't recognize, shuffling through documents with practiced efficiency. When Derek glanced up, their eyes met briefly. William expected to see malice or greed, but instead caught something more complex: uncertainty, perhaps even shame. Judge Harrington entered and the preliminary hearing began. William listened as Derek's attorney presented his client's case, a man who had made terrible mistakes while grieving, who had sought counseling, secured stable employment, and now wished to reunite with his stepdaughters. "Mr. Spencer has completed 6 weeks of parenting classes," the lawyer stated. "He has prepared a suitable 2-bedroom apartment and established contact with the girls' former school." When William's attorney rose to speak, he methodically outlined the abandonment, the 18 months of stability the twins had found with William, their academic and emotional progress, and the trauma another upheaval would cause. "The evidence will show," he concluded, "that Mr. Blackwood has become the only consistent parental figure in these children's lives." Outside the courtroom afterward, William's attorney looked grim. "It's not going to be straightforward," he admitted. "Spencer has rehabilitated his image remarkably well. The law tends to favor biological connections, even for step-parents with prior custody." That evening, William sat with the twins in their nearly completed music room, listening as Olivia practiced a new piece on her violin. The sweet, melancholy notes filled the space, and William felt a crushing weight in his chest at the thought of losing moments like these. "You seem sad," Emma observed, her perceptiveness as sharp as ever. William considered deflecting but chose honesty. "I'm dealing with some difficult business matters." "Is it about us?" Olivia asked suddenly, lowering her violin. "Mrs. Parker was acting strange this morning, and you missed our science presentation." William set aside the legal briefs he'd been reviewing. "Yes," he admitted. "It's about you, but it's complicated, and I was hoping to have more answers before we discussed it." The twins exchanged a glance, their silent communication system at work. "Is someone trying to take us away?" Emma asked, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. The directness of her question stole William's breath. These remarkable children had already endured so much loss. They could sense when their security was threatened. "I promise you both," William said, choosing his words carefully. "I will do everything in my power to keep you safe and keep us together. This is your home and His voice caught unexpectedly. "I love you both very much." It was the first time he'd said those words aloud, though he'd felt them growing for months. Olivia set down her violin and moved to sit beside him. Without speaking, she placed her small hand in his. On his other side, Emma did the same. "We know," she said simply. William's footsteps echoed through the corridor of the Blackwood Investments headquarters as he strode toward the conference room. The custody battle had dragged on for 3 grueling months, each hearing more draining than the last. Derek Spencer had presented himself as a reformed man, claiming genuine remorse for his past actions and a sincere desire to reconnect with his stepdaughters. Today, William had been summoned to an emergency board meeting called by Jeffrey. The IUR timing couldn't have been worse. He was due in court tomorrow for what might be the final custody hearing. As William pushed open the conference room doors, the conversation inside abruptly ceased. 8 board members sat around the massive mahogany table with Jeffrey standing at the head, mid-presentation. "Ah, William. So glad you could join us," Jeffrey said, his voice dripping with false cordiality. "I was just explaining to the board why our CEO's domestic situation has become untenable for our investors." William took his seat without responding. On the projection screen behind Jeffrey was a newspaper article about the custody case, alongside a graph showing a slight dip in Blackwood stock prices. "The uncertainty surrounding your household has created market nervousness," Jeffrey continued. "Some major investors are questioning your focus and commitment." "My work performance has been exemplary," William replied evenly. "The Nakamura acquisition alone increased our holdings by 17% last quarter." "That's not the point," Jeffrey countered. "This public spectacle with the custody battle, my family is not up for discussion." William interrupted, his voice steel. Jeffrey's expression hardened. "When it affects our bottom line, it absolutely is. Spencer's lawyer has been giving interviews suggesting you used your wealth to essentially purchase these children." William managed to maintain his composure through the remainder of the meeting, but afterward, he remained alone in the conference room, troubled by Jeffrey's unusual level of knowledge about the case. How had he known details that weren't public record? His phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. "Urgent. Found something. Meet me at Riverside Cafe in 30. The investigator was already waiting when William arrived, a thick folder on the table between them. "You were right to be suspicious," Thomas said without preamble, sliding several photographs across the table. Spencer didn't suddenly develop parental instincts. The images showed Derek meeting with Jeffrey at a restaurant, in a park, outside a lawyer's office. In one photo, Jeffrey appeared to be handing Derek an envelope. "There's more," Thomas continued. "Producing bank records. Spencer's received 4 payments of $25,000 each since returning to Boston. The source is a shell company that traces back to your cousin." William felt cold rage building inside him. "Jeffrey's paying him to fight for custody." "Not just paying him," Thomas corrected. "Coaching him. That parenting class certificate? The apartment lease, the steady job, all arranged by Jeffrey. He's orchestrated Spencer's entire reformation." "But why?" William asked, though the answer was forming in his mind even as he spoke. "Your current will leaves controlling interest in Blackwood investments to the twins upon your death," Thomas explained. "That information became public record when you filed for permanent guardianship. Jeffrey stands to lose his position if you legally adopt them." William's mind raced. Jeffrey wasn't just trying to distract him with the custody battle, he was attempting to remove the twins from his life entirely, eliminating them as potential heirs. "What will you do with this information?" Thomas asked. "First, I'm going to protect my daughters," William replied, the word daughters feeling completely natural now. "Then I'm going to deal with my cousin." That evening, William returned to the mansion to find the construction crew putting final touches on the renovated West Wing. The twins were helping Mrs. Parker prepare dinner, flour dusting their cheeks as they attempted homemade pasta. Watching them, William felt a fierce protectiveness, unlike anything he'd experienced in his business career. These children had transformed his empty house into a home filled with laughter and purpose. Jeffrey had underestimated just how far William would go to protect his newfound family. With renewed determination, William made 2 calls, first to his attorney to prepare an ambush for tomorrow's hearing, then to the head of his security team. By morning, Jeffrey would discover just how thoroughly he had miscalculated. The cemetery lay quiet under a gentle spring rain. William stood solemnly behind the twins, watching as they placed fresh flowers on their mother's grave. 2 years had passed since the night Amanda Mason's daughters appeared at his gate, changing his life forever. The polished granite headstone gleamed in the misty morning light. Amanda Rose Mason, beloved mother, gifted musician, Beautiful soul. William had commissioned it himself after discovering that financial constraints had forced Derek to choose the simplest marker available. Mom loved the rain, Olivia said softly, adjusting the bouquet of white lilies they'd brought. She said, "It made the world feel clean again." Emma nodded, her hand resting protectively on her sister's shoulder. At 8 years old, they still looked remarkably identical to strangers, but William could now distinguish 1,000 subtle differences. Emma's more determined gait, Olivia's thoughtful pauses, the different ways they tilted their heads when listening. "I wish she could see us now," Emma said, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes. "I think she'd be happy." William remained a respectful distance behind them, giving the girls this moment with their mother. The past week had been a whirlwind of legal proceedings, culminating in yesterday's dramatic courtroom revelation. Derek Spencer had crumbled under cross-examination when presented with evidence of Jeffrey's payments. In a moment of unexpected honesty, he'd admitted to the entire scheme, how Jeffrey had tracked him down in Chicago, offered him substantial money to fight for custody, and coached him on how to appear reformed. "I never even wanted the girls back," Derek had confessed on the stand, tears streaming down his weathered face. "They deserve better than me. I just needed the money." The judge had immediately dismissed Spencer's petition and ordered an investigation into Jeffrey's actions. By evening, the news had reached the Blackwood Investments Board, who called an emergency session that William suspected would end with his cousin's removal. But none of that mattered compared to the moment when the judge had looked directly at the twins and spoken the words William had been waiting to hear. "You girls will remain with Mr. Blackwood, who has proven himself a dedicated guardian." Now standing in the peaceful cemetery, William watched as Olivia placed a small envelope beside the flowers. "What's that?" he asked gently when she returned to his side. "A letter to Mom," Olivia explained. "I told her about my violin recital and my new room. And about you." William felt a tightness in his chest. "What did you tell her about me?" Emma answered instead, her practical nature always direct. "That you take care of us now, that you're not trying to replace her just like you promised, and that we're happy." The simplicity of her statement nearly undid him. After months of legal battles and corporate machinations, this quiet moment of acceptance meant more than any courtroom victory. As they walked back toward the car where Mrs. Parker waited, William's phone buzzed with a message from his attorney. "Adoption paperwork ready for filing. Can proceed as early as next week." William slipped the phone back into his pocket without responding. That news could wait. Today wasn't about legal definitions or paperwork. It was about honoring the remarkable woman who had brought these extraordinary children into the world, and acknowledging the journey that had brought them into his life. Will? Emma rarely used the shortened version of his name, making it significant when she did. "What happens to Derek now? And your cousin?" William considered how much to share with an 8-year-old, even one as perceptive as Emma. "Jeffrey will likely lose his position at the company. As for Derek..." He paused. "He made bad choices but also told the truth in the end. The judge will decide what consequences he faces." Olivia looked up at him with those searching eyes that seemed to see straight through any pretense. "Are you angry with them?" William thought carefully before answering. "I was very angry, yes, but mostly I'm grateful." "Grateful?" both girls asked in unison, their synchronicity still occasionally surfacing. "If Derek hadn't brought you to my gate that night, if Jeffrey hadn't revealed his true character through this scheme, I might never have discovered what truly matters." He placed a gentle hand on each of their shoulders. "Sometimes the worst decisions of others lead us to exactly where we need to be." As they reached the car, the rain began to lighten, and a ray of sunshine broke through the clouds, illuminating the path ahead, much like the future that now stretched before them, finally clear and certain. A gentle snow fell over Boston, coating the Blackwood estate in a pristine white blanket. 3 years to the day since that fateful night, William stood at the large bay window in his study, watching the flakes drift down in the fading afternoon light. The symmetry wasn't lost on him. Another snowstorm, but everything else transformed. Today was no ordinary day. After months of paperwork, interviews, and hearings, The adoption would finally be official. In just a few hours, Emma and Olivia would legally become Blackwoods. "The car's ready whenever you are, sir," Mrs. Parker announced from the doorway, her usual formality softened by the emotion in her eyes. "The girls are almost dressed." William nodded, straightening his tie. "Thank you, Mrs. Parker. Not just for today, but for everything these past 3 years. I couldn't have done this without you." The housekeeper, normally so reserved, blinked back tears. "It has been my privilege to watch this family form, sir. Truly. Family." The word still occasionally caught William by surprise, though it now felt as natural as breathing. He made his way to the newly renovated West Wing, where excited voices drifted from the twins' rooms. The hallway walls, once barren, were now lined with photographs. The girls at their school play, sailing on the lake, building a snowman with William last winter. A visual history of their journey together. The music room door stood open. Inside, placed prominently on the wall, hung a portrait of Amanda Mason holding her violin, her gentle smile watching over the baby grand piano where Olivia practiced daily. William had commissioned the painting from a photograph, wanting the girls to always feel their mother's presence. "Are we late?" Emma's voice came from behind him. She stood in her doorway, wearing a deep blue dress that matched her eyes, her hair styled in an elegant braid Mrs. Parker had clearly helped with. "Right on schedule," William assured her. "You look beautiful." Olivia appeared next, in an identical dress but with her hair styled differently, one of the many ways they now chose to express their individuality. "Is it really happening today?" Olivia asked, her voice betraying a hint of lingering disbelief. William knelt to their level, a habit he'd developed early in their relationship. "Yes, it's really happening. But I want you both to understand something important." The twins looked at him expectantly, their expressions serious. "The judge will make it official today, but you became my daughters long ago, the moment I realized I couldn't imagine my life without you." Emma, always practical, had a question. "When people ask about our family, what should we say? About our mom and everything?" William had anticipated this. "We tell the truth, that you had a wonderful mother who loved you very much, that through circumstances none of us planned, we found each other and became a family. Different from some, but no less real." In the courthouse downtown, the formal proceedings passed in a blur of legal terminology and signatures. Judge Harrington, who had overseen the custody case, presided with a warmth that belied the institutional setting. Having reviewed all pertinent documentation, she announced finally, "I am pleased to approve this adoption. Emma and Olivia Mason are henceforth legally Emma and Olivia Blackwood." The small audience, Mrs. Parker, William's attorney, the twins' favorite teacher, Ms. Winters, and a few close friends, broke into applause. Outside, the snow continued to fall as they exited the courthouse. The twins ran ahead down the steps, twirling with their faces upturned to catch snowflakes on their tongues, their matching blue dresses swirling around them. "Dad! Come on!" Emma called, the word Dad now flowing naturally from both girls' lips, after months of tentative testing. As William joined them, Olivia slipped her hand into his. "Mom would be happy today," she said softly. "I believe she would," William agreed. Back at the mansion, a celebration awaited. Not the lavish corporate events William had once hosted, but a warm gathering with homemade cake, slightly lopsided, as the twins had insisted on baking it themselves, and thoughtfully chosen gifts. Later that evening, after their guests had departed, William found himself standing once again at the window where he'd watched the snowfall that morning. The storm had intensified, much like the night when two small figures had appeared at his gate. He felt a presence beside him and turned to find both girls in their pajamas, ready for bed, but clearly not ready for this momentous day to end. "It looks just like that night," Emma observed, gazing out at the swirling snow. "The first night," Olivia added, "when we found you." William smiled at their phrasing, not when he had found them, but when they had found him. Perhaps that was the truest version of the story. I have something for you both, he said, retrieving 2 small boxes from his desk drawer. A tradition in the Blackwood family for generations. Inside each box was a delicate gold signet ring bearing the Blackwood family crest, sized for their small fingers but designed to be worn on chains around their necks until they grew into them. These belong to my mother, William explained. She always said they should be passed down to daughters in the family. As the twins admired their rings, Emma looked up suddenly. Did you know we would stay? That first night when you found us in the snow? William considered the question thoughtfully. No, he answered honestly. I didn't know then, but I think sometimes the most important things in life aren't planned. They find us when we need them most. Olivia slipped her hand into his as she had that day in the cemetery. We're glad we found you, Dad. And I'm glad you found me, William replied, his heart fuller than he'd ever imagined possible. Now, it's getting late. Tomorrow is our first official day as the Blackwood family. As he tucked them into their beds, separate rooms now but with a connecting door they still left open, William realized that the circle was complete. The journey that began on a snowy night had brought them here, to another snowy night, but this time with certainty and belonging where once there had been only questions and fear. The storm outside might rage, but within these walls, 3 hearts that had once been lost and separate now beat as one family, different from what any of them had imagined but perfectly, wonderfully their own.